Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Hashtag Keep Hustling. And in this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. And of course, now and always, keep hustling. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Mario the Monk Trotta. Thanks for coming today, Mario.
Thank you for having me, brother.
I have greatly enjoyed getting to know you over the last few weeks, few months, following you for, I guess, 2 years now. So I am so honored that you're here with us to tell a little bit about your story and how you became the monk, I guess.
Sure. I am equally grateful for our friendship and getting to learn more about you. And, the universe is funny. It puts people in my life that I get it and continues to put amazing people in my life.
Well, let's talk about that. What do we need to know about what took you from being just Mario to the monk? How'd you get to that chair today?
So, when I was a mortgage banker for 15 years, made a good living. Um, I know I'm terrible with dates. I'm really bad with dates. So, um, let's take it back. I wanted to get into shape. Okay. And my best friend, Paul Winnegurst, was always an athlete. He's had abs since I've known him. And uh, I had said, look, I'd come back from Bahamas and I said, I would really like to get into shape. Would you help me just kind of hold me accountable, just show me what you're doing, et cetera? So we started this little thing together where he was just teaching me what to cook, exercises to do, things like that. And within 2 weeks, or about 2 weeks in, we went, I don't know, get a slice of pizza or something in Mount Vernon, Joe's in Fleetwood, and we ran into a friend of ours, little brother, name is Sean Smith, and he was all cut up. He had veins popping out of his arms, and we're like, dude, what are you doing? You look amazing. And he's like, I'm actually in the infomercial, or I'm going to be in the infomercial for Sean T. Insanity. I don't know if you remember
Sure.
that program. So we're like, all right, that sounds pretty cool. What's that like? He's like, well, every day I go down to Rockefeller Center and work out in a gym with about 50 other people. Sean T leads the workout, and every week we get our body composition taken by a nutritionist to make sure that fat is down, muscle is up, and when we leave the gym every day, we have 5 meals waiting, prepared for us. So we were like, that's actually, sounds incredible. Like it's almost like you can't lose. And he saw how interested we were. So Paul and I went back to my house. We were just chilling out, and Sean hits us up and he's like, look, were you guys really interested in what I was saying? And we were like, yeah, it sounds amazing. He's like, well, can I come over right now and talk more? So he ended up coming over and kind of gave us this pitch like, what if we put a small group of people together to kind of mimic what I'm doing in this infomercial and see if I could get the same results for you guys that I've been getting? Literally, Aaron, within 2 days, I mean, we had a gym, Phoenix in Tuckahoe, that allowed us to use their studio. We found a nutritionist, we found a chef, and we put a pilot group together of 10 people, friends, my brother, his brother. There was about 8 of us, and within 60 days, the results were just like insane. Um, and we kind of started posting it on social, and everybody's like, yo, what is this? We want in. And we decided to launch a company called Fat Burn. And that was the beginning. So we launched this company. Paul and I both had really great jobs. He was a trader, I was a mortgage banker, and we kind of dropped everything, our careers, and started this company together. Within a few years, we raised capital, 300,000, and we launched our first location in above Iron Tomato. And Fat Burn is actually still there today. But over the course of 4 or 5 years, we both went from making, 40, 50,000 a month to barely making 2,500 a month, right? And I got divorced. I mean, I was getting divorced before that, but this just added fuel to that happening quicker. And after a little bit, we just decided that we had different visions. We weren't making money, and I decided to do buyout. I decided to come back into the mortgage business and kind of take everything that I learned from bootstrapping. We couldn't afford to pay people for SEO and web design and social media, so we had to do everything ourselves. So it's like, look, I'm going to go back into the mortgage business. I'm going to take everything that I learned from this, and I'm going to apply it there. And when I came back to the mortgage business, I was delusional in thinking that all of my referral partners were just going to be there with like open arms, like, Mario, you're back. Here's all the business. It didn't happen that way. So I had to reinvent myself. And I had to decide, all right, well, if I have to start from scratch, like, what am I, how am I going to do this? And I decided I was going to bypass realtors, never wanted to work with a realtor again. And I was going to go directly to the buyer. That was the game plan. And as I'm coming up with like my handle and stuff, I was doing a lot of self work. I was involved in men's groups. Um, I did probably 4 or 5 retreats. I had a few mentors, and I've always been obsessed with monks and this kind of spiritual journey. So when I launched, I kind of combined the two things, what I was good at and what I was kind of interested in. So I came up with the name Mortgage Monk, and that was my original IG handle. And within a few months, the name just started catching on. I would go places, people would call me the monk. Nobody knew my first name. It was
I didn't
very
know your first
awkward.
name until we really connected, to be honest.
It was really awkward for me because I'm like, how do I'm not going to introduce myself as the monk, but when I said my name, people would be like, "Oh, nice to meet you," and then within 5 minutes of the conversation, they'd be like, "Oh, you're the monk. I've heard about you." Blah blah blah. So from there, I just saw what I had originally intended to do was to bypass realtors, and what ended up happening was I started attracting realtors because I was doing something that they wanted to do and wanted help doing it. And for the first time, I saw that my relationship prior to this was I didn't know what I was good at. So I was asked to do things that I didn't want to do, like cater open houses, pay for Zillow leads, all that bullshit, which was understandable, right? Realtors were kind of top of the food chain. And I didn't I didn't know what else to give them other than those things. And that's why I wanted to avoid them. But by doing this, I saw that I had something special that they wanted, and I started to really get to know them, and I became friends with them, and I'm like, they're not blood-sucking vampires. They have something that they're always giving, and nobody's giving them what they need or want in return. And I learned quickly, like, about relationships and giving and the importance of being seen, and I kinda always knew the strategy of standing out, something I, had to learn how to do at a very young age. I wasn't 6'4", I wasn't rich, I wasn't an athlete, but I was always attracted to the hottest women, right? And I didn't know how to get them, so I had to figure out how to get them. And there was strategy, like, how do I get these people to come into my world, my circle? And nothing's changed since high school. You have to be doing some cool shit, and you have to when you're involved with cool things and cool people, it attracts people into your circle, and there's no difference 30 years later. It's the same game. But that's kind of how the monk name started, and that's what started this journey. It was just a combination of, I'm good at mortgages and I'm on this spiritual journey. Let's kind of mesh the two and see where this goes.
I I didn't know that thing about the gym, so that's amazing. I guess my question there is, or what's interesting about that part of your story, or leading up to where you are today, is that it seems to me that you've always thrived on being the connector or the person who was working in a group, meaning in the Fat Burn Business. Was that the name of the business? Did I get that right?
Hmm. Phatburn. Yes.
So in the Fat Burn business, it was a bunch of guys coming together to get to the common goal of building the brand. And then when you were able to do that, you kind of had the people who you didn't know you were going to attract and the realtors coming back to join your tribe, for lack of a better term, pushing towards the common goal. But it seems like there's always a focus in your trajectory of the team around you or of that tribe around you, which I guess works with the monk. But
Yeah, I've never been a lone wolf. I always rather do it together. Because look, whether you win or lose, right? Neither of those things are fun to do by yourself, right? I losing is one thing, but like winning too, you know, it's so much more fun when you're winning together, right? Like,
I think that so many people lose that. I think that so many people focus on their personal bottom line. And I'm not talking about, and what's interesting, and this is why your hustle inspires my hustle, and that is that you're not saying, I'll leverage other people around me so that I end up where I want to be. It's
yeah, no,
the tribe together, and we'll get to the next stage of that in a minute, but the if the whole group rose together, everybody rises. And I think that often, especially in younger people, that gets lost. It's about that personal gain and not realizing that, first of all, the fun that you'll have on the way up, not stepping on people. And also, even if you're successful, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're far more successful than I am, the
well, it all depends on how you judge success.
but
Like, go ahead.
but what I'm saying is right, but meaning in this regard, when the difficult time comes, when you have that core of people together, it makes it easier to hustle through or keep hustling through that difficult time. And then you're able to obviously break through that wall and get really far ahead.
Dude, the downs, the lows, when I look back, those were the best parts of those were the most exciting times of my life. First off, when you hit this low that like you're like, fuck, I have no money, my credit shot, you're almost free. Like there's total freedom, right? Where there's nothing to worry about, and nothing is ever as bad as I thought it was going to be. Once you have money, you can easily fix your credit. Like things get easy once you have money, but people are so afraid to kind of take that leap because of what may happen. Look, dude, I lived in a basement, for 3 years, happier than a pig in shit. Like I went from living in this huge 5,000 square foot house to living in a basement. Never once was I like, I'm really unhappy right now. When I had it, I spent it. When I didn't care. Here's the funny thing: when I'm at my low, I'm my most creative.
I
When
want to talk
I'm
about that.
making
I
when
want to
I'm
dig in
making
there.
them when I'm making money, I've learned my lessons. I've taken my foot off the pedal. I've relaxed. I've kind of like uh, I've rested on my laurels, right? And dude, in this game, and I've learned, and I'll never make that mistake again. When you have momentum, when you are hot, you need to push even more. And I was taking breaks because I worked so hard to get to this point. I'm like, finally, I had 50, 60,000 a month coming in, working 12 hours a month. It was just easy for the first time. But during those years, I lost creativity. I wasn't making anything new. I was traveling, and I don't regret anything, but I just learned you can't take your foot off the pedal.
It's amazing you say that. I was back and forth with social with someone last night about this. And obviously my hashtag and the background of this entire endeavor for me is about keep hustling. And my comment was, so this person said that keep hustling was a season, not a mindset. And I said that
No,
keep hustling is a lifestyle. What that means is, and exactly what you're saying, obviously, when someone is in the lowest points, they realize that their back is up against the wall and they have to push. But the greatest success comes from not stopping when everyone else would stop. Everyone else would stop here. You can get to 10x, I feel, if you go 2 or 3 steps further than the other person is willing to. When they stop, you push an extra 6 months, you push an extra few leads, you push that content, you push that drive. That's what separates the top 25% for that 1%, in my view.
Yeah, and here's the thing: when things are good, most people aren't reflecting at that point, right? It's like I've hired coaches and stuff when I was at my low. I should have been doing this at my high, right? To get to the next level. But yeah, when things are going good, you're not I wasn't paying attention enough.
So I think that leads me to my next question, and that is, what do you view when you look back at your journey so far as the most pivotal moment in that story where it all started to
The
click in what you wanted
the
to do
mo-
and how you wanted to do it?
the most pivotal moment for me, because it set a series of events in place, was going to something called Landmark. It was a 3-day forum that my partner Paul at the time, he had went because the funny thing is with partnerships, and I tell everyone, like, the second a partners come to me and they're having any type of conflict or wherever they're at, the first thing I ask is, do you have your roles clearly defined? Like, who is responsible for what? Because my best friend and I did not. We were meshed. And it wasn't until many years later that I realized that he is a full blown executor. I'm a visionary, and we have very different skill sets. And I think we were both trying to manage, like, both parts of the business when it should have just been completely separated. Um, so I'm going. I went a little bit off tangent here. So tell me,
The
so I can
pivotal
bring it
moment
back.
at the
Yeah.
3-day
So
conference.
so he, because he cared so much about our relationship and saw that our friendship was deteriorating, he went and did this thing called Landmark because somebody had um, recommended it to him. And he's like, "Look, I will pay for you to do this," because it was like $900 or something at the time, and I would really love for you to go. I think it'll help us. And I postponed this thing for months. And he finally was like, "Look, I got my mom to go. Can you finally commit to doing it next weekend? Because I need you to take her with you," something like that. So I had to go. And I remember I went to Landmark, and I'm like, the first, because they had this thing on Tuesdays, like before you started the weekend. And I went, I'm like, dude, where did you bring me? This place is a fucking cult. This is the weirdest shit I'm ever seeing. But then the marketing in me was like, okay, but I would love to have a cult. I'm not going to come here to learn anything other than how to make a cult. That was my intention. And when I got there on Friday morning, because it's like starts on Friday morning, ends on Sunday evening, within the first few minutes of this powerhouse woman, Jocelyn, speaking, she led the room of about 300 people. One of the first things she did was like, "What's this?" Right? Where am I? And everybody in the room had a different answer. It's a finger. It's up. It's the number one. And the point was, right, well, there's 8 billion perspectives in this world. Who's right? Who's wrong? And they were using analogies and things that I could easily understand. I'm an analogy guy, and they just delivered this information in such an amazing way. But so the reason I'm attributing the that pivotal point to Landmark was because from Landmark I met someone there, and then that person became a mentor, and then that person told me about David Data and his book, and that led me to a retreat in North Carolina, and then I met somebody there, and that led me to, a another retreat in Pennsylvania, and I was kind of open. I just was open, and I said yes, and I went through this period of just being so uncomfortable. And every time I got comfortable, there's something else to get uncomfortable with. So when I got on social media, I had a huge advantage, and that was, dude, I was just ready to show up as me. And it didn't matter whether you liked me or not. If I was operating at full authenticity, like, this is me, I knew it was going to come with the love and the hate, and I was totally okay with it. I didn't need people to like me, love me or hate me, and that's how I'm going to build my tribe. So the pivotal moment for me was my friend Paul making me go to, or asking me to go to Landmark,
Do you,
because it just set a whole different mindset for me.
do you think at the time you knew that, or
No,
now just looking back at it?
no way, man. That was not something I could have even told you, you know, a year in. It wouldn't be until today that I can look back and be like, wow, that was the moment. Now, you have to understand too, I come from a very big family that I've always had a tribe, which I didn't realize. I never was afraid of failing because I always had a fallback plan. And, you know, I feel I feel for people who feel like they have no fallback or whatever. I didn't have that. So I can't be sorry for it. But my parents was like the door's always open. My family, I was never going to be homeless. I was never going to not have food. I was always going to have the basics. Did I lose the fancy stuff? Yeah, my Mercedes got repoed and my credit got shot and all that, but I always had everything I needed. So I always knew I could keep aiming for happiness because I was never going to be hungry. I wouldn't have all the things that everybody else had, but I wouldn't be homeless.
It's interesting you say that because a few minutes ago you mentioned that you felt like your back was up against the wall and you're at rock bottom. So it's
Because
interesting.
for me, what my expectations were for myself, that still was bottom for me, right? Just because I could eat, it didn't mean I was I was
100%.
satisfied. It was just meant, okay, this is the lowest. It's not that bad, but like, it's time to get to work.
Do you think that had you not experienced that, you wouldn't be as motivated to? Because I know you work like I don't even want to know how many hours a day, but I know texts happen at ridiculous hours. So,
Yeah, I love this shit, man. That's why I can't do something I don't love, and I never loved mortgages,
so what do
right?
you
And
love?
I love building. I love creating. I love taking. Everybody has a problem. I love being able to offer the solution, but more than anything, I love finding that superpower in everyone and being like, dude, if you see what I see in you, okay, and you just take that one thing that you are great at, because everybody's great at something, your whole life can change. And everybody is one connection away from a life changing experience.
So what's your superpower?
Connections, man, and seeing the gold in everybody. I can sit with you and get to know you, and I could be like, that is a superpower. But connecting is my superpower because I can listen for the triggers. There are triggers, right? And I try explaining this to realtors and mortgage LOs. You being a mortgage LO is not a trigger. You being a realtor is not a trigger. Somebody going, I need a realtor in my Marinac, and one person coming to mind, that's a trigger.
And and then that trigger leads to other connections and deeper connections because you can kind of hone that craft and kind of own that lane.
Yeah. I mean, if I can't think of a trigger for you, that's a problem. Like if this comes up, I'm thinking of this person. It doesn't mean you have nothing to offer. It means that you're still trying to go too wide. You still, again, everybody has different philosophies. I think if you want to grow on social and likes and comments and views really matter to you, I think it's a totally different strategy than if you want to make money. Because I think that the riches are in the niches, right?
Right.
But it's a different strategy if you're trying to grow, right? If you're too niche, you're not going to reach a broad audience, which means you're not going to go viral and those things. But I take money any day of the week over views. I see how many people are getting caught up with that. And I'm like, but are you making more money from it? Like, I don't.
It's also the no one, I think even the best people on social or in any marketing haven't figured out the perfect play in the algorithms. So I think that the people who f- fixate and focus on that today, tomorrow when the algorithm changes, they're totally lost. Whereas if you're focused on building yourself, your brand, your tribe, and all of that, whether it's super niche or not, but at least it's just some sort of box, as you said, or that superpower, then you'll just keep doing what you're doing and eventually the success will follow rather than just chasing the algorithm.
Yeah, I think if you listen, I think if you're surrounded by a lot of people and you are known as someone, when you're just somebody that other people want to be around, like there's no reason to not want to be around me.
I,
Why
I,
would you
I
not?
was going to
Why
ask
would
about, yeah, I was going to get to that. Yeah.
why would you not want to be around me? I don't judge. I'm pretty easy to talk to. I have a ton of resources, like, and I'm always willing to help. Why would you not want to be around me?
100%. Well, that's what, and the interesting thing is, I think a lot of people probably get to you from the free resources, and they probably assume, I was guilty of this somewhat as well, that behind the free resource is a paywall. Not to jump on the Alex Hormozy train, but that eventually there's going to be some sort of like crazy paywall, and yet your tribe, I think, is built of people realizing that it's just about the connections.
Yeah, but listen, you have to get paid too, right? Like if
100%.
I don't get paid, I can't keep doing what I'm doing, right? Like at
I
the end of the
understand that.
day, you can't. But yeah, I mean that's always been my hardest thing to figure out, which is why I read Hormozy and these things. Is okay, I love doing all these things. How do I charge for it? How to charge, pricing, and deliverables has single-handedly has always been my greatest challenge. Anytime I launch something new, I just don't know what to offer or how much to charge. So I just test everything. And when people start saying no, 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 that's when you know you kind of, all right, maybe you hit that wall. But yeah, I mean, that's always the hardest thing for me to figure out because there's so many things that I can help with. Um, but then I kind of have this formula. Okay, what do you want? What do you need? Right, you, Aaron, and then what do I really find joy in? Because I could do a lot, but what do I find the most joy in doing to help you? Right, and then is it scalable? So if you look at the three legs of the triangle, that is how I come up with everything I'm going to do. What do they need? Am I happy delivering this? And then can I scale this?
I, I got to ask you about one other part of your incredible hustle, and that is you have a unique ability, a seriously unique ability to actually grab the attention of the people whose attention you want.
Yeah.
Most people can't figure that out. So you don't I'm not asking about the tricks of that trade. What I'm most
Happy to give it. I'm
well,
happy
well
to
I
give
want
it.
to get to that, but my other question is I have to believe that in getting there you face a lot of rejection and not every reach out hits. And so how do you hustle through those times when you feel like this is the perfect pitch or the perfect reach out or the perfect engagement and it's not clicking and it's not jiving? How do you keep hustling through that?
It's very easy. I never once say this is the perfect pitch. Like I'm never like this is the perfect
You never come up with
pitch.
something and you're like, this is it. This is the gold.
No, never. Like it's always. I mean, I'll give you an example right now. Renee, let's just take Renee Rodriguez for example, right? Like he I reached out when I was in the process. I have a hit list. I think I showed it to you. Like,
Yeah.
here's all the people I would like to meet. Not everybody is like about doing this every day, but I really believe I can get in touch with anyone. Um, and what I always do here's the formula. The first thing I do is I go. So let's say I want to meet Renee Rodriguez, okay, or pick somebody that you would love to meet.
Gary V.
Okay, Gary Vee. So Gary Vee, the first thing I would do is I would go to Gary Vee's page and see who he is following. Okay, it's always about who they're following, not who's following them. And then I would try to find three people that he's following that I have a connection with. So in that case, in this case, at this point, I have a lot of people that if I see who he's following, I can use to connect. Okay. So I get who's my in. That's number one. Then have I given value to this in? Right? Like
Okay.
if you're an in for me, have I given value to you? And then the goal would be I need to show up in a short amount of time with 3 people that Gary V respects and admires in a public place. So I would make it a mission of mine to do a podcast, do something 3 days in a row with 3 people that Gary Vee are following. So I'm on his radar in some way, shape, or form, even if it's subconsciously. I've seen this person because I always want people to know who I am before I even approach them.
100%.
Okay. And then I try to figure out ways of how I could add value to them. So if I was going after Gary Vee, which I have on my hit list, I have 150, 160 top producing realtors. Does that do anything for Gary Vee? No. But what do realtors love? Wine. They love drinking. What is Gary Vee passionate about? Wine. I would literally lead with something along the lines of, hey guys, how can we get 160 subscriptions where it's a win-win? You love wine. We all want to meet Gary Vee. Let's all do this thing where we pool our resources, buy some wine, enough to get on his radar and get 20 minutes with him. That would be my strategy. Now, if I wanted to implement it, I don't I'm not ready for Gary Vee yet. I don't even know what I would ask of him yet. Other than it just being cool to get him on, I'm not ready. So I bank that. That's the strategy that I would be deploying. Does that make sense?
That's unbelievable.
Everybody wants something. Everybody needs something. If I want Alex Hormozy, there's nothing I could give him right now other than what if I documented my entire journey of starting over, right? Back at 10 grand a month to getting to 3 million, which was his criteria to get in with him. And I documented my entire journey using only the tools and resources he's given. That may be a way to get his attention.
And Content King, there you go, boom. And I
could just literally do this with every person.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. That is and it works. It actually works. And most people think I should just reach out to them or send them something or try to, but it's that secondary angle of everybody needs something. Everyone is influenced by some other people, and figuring out how to get into that influence sphere, and then kind of coming in that way rather than trying to just work that out.
It's always a backdoor.
That's unbelievable. So what happens when it doesn't work?
It's never not worked. I can't think of. First off, it can't not work because I'm still alive, right? So even if it didn't work once or twice, it's like if I really want it, I'm not stopping. So until I'm dead, to say that it didn't work, it can't say that.
So I'm not dead. The answer is that you can't put a timeline on anything because you just have to keep pushing through, keep at it, and eventually it will click. You may not realize that it's going to take 2 years to get there, but if you stay the course, then it will kind of click through and things will.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever set out to do something that I really, really wanted, and I didn't make it happen. The time frame of it happening, can't promise anybody that, but I think if you just stick things out long enough and you never give up, how do you fail?
Do you think that too many people get caught up in the timeline?
100%. Listen, people would never do what I did at 40 years old. Start over, living with your parents, having who would do that? Not many people.
But look at where it's gotten you.
Yeah, but they still, it doesn't matter. They still couldn't deal with that short-term failure the way they would look at it. When I'm like, guys, but if you take 5 steps back, figure all this stuff out, you could 10 times jump ahead, but you definitely have to go a little bit backwards.
You got to build those foundations. You got to build the right foundation. And when you start your career, you don't even know what those are to build them.
So this is what I'm doing in the 60-day challenge that we're launching in the group, because I've been wanting to do this for years now. And I wanted to sell a course on literally what has worked for me. Because I don't ever pretend, I don't tell people how to get hundreds of thousands of followers. I've never done it. I don't tell people how to make, $1 million a month. I've never done. I can only take you where I've been, like up to where I've been, and after that, I'm still learning, right? But there is a process, and everyone who comes to me, they just want to jump into the content stage. And when I built out this process, content was phase three. Phase one was the shit that nobody wanted to do, the strategy, the getting to know your strengths, like kind of going deep with yourself, right?
Honing your craft.
Honing your craft, figuring out as much about you as possible. And there's exercises that I've done to do this. And now I'm going to show people every exercise that I did. And I'm going to move them through the phases, because even now, I'm not making content at mass scale because I don't have 100% yet what this community is all about. I know that everybody's happy. I know that people get something different out of it. But if I asked you to describe the community in a quick, clear, concise way, I don't know if you could. And I need you, because I need that trigger. I need you to be able to be like, the collab project is this, right? Like in those few words, and it just makes sense from that. Until I have that clarity, I will not pump out content because I won't get the ROI on it. I know how much time and money it costs to produce content at scale. And if you want an, that ROI quickly, it needs to start with strategy. You have to build backwards. So until I have that clarity, and it's driving me insane because you can't rush that either. I can't rush it. This has happened to me several times in my life. You're like, I need this clarity now, and it
Doesn't
sometimes
come.
just doesn't come to you when you need it and when you want it. But when it comes, here's what happens, Aaron. When I have that clarity that I'm looking for, I will go from this to this in microseconds.
Because you've put that foundation in, so you can just build you can scale it easy.
You, you just know it all becomes clear when you have that 30-second elevator pitch down pat. You know what you do, you know why people are coming to you. You're the best, you're exceptional at delivering this one thing. This is what you're known for. When you have that, everything becomes easier. Your content all has a purpose now.
We have a closing tradition here on Keep Hustling that we ask our guests to share their favorite or most inspirational quote, past, present, or future, that's inspiring them or inspires their hustle.
Favorite quote, you know what, give me a second. I feel like I have
One day we're
like
going
a
to dig into the monk's notes and we're going to see the
oh
incredible
my god.
resource that is. That'll be a good piece of content, scrolling through each one of the notes and how they kind of came about.
Let me see. I do have quotes here. Some of my favorites. Let me give me 1 second.
The monk deep in thought.
None of these are really resonating with me right now. There, you know what? I do have a quote. I just don't want to. This is. I got it. Hold on. I don't want to mess this up. It's by Jay Shetty, and I love it. So let me get the right words.
You
Okay.
got it. The mind of the monk at work.
Yeah, this is it. Let me. Yeah. Let me move this. My favorite quote by Jay Shetty is, I am not what I think I am. I am not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. Let that sit. I am not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. And that's how people go through life. Creating this persona of who I think you think I am.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. Which is not really who you are,
Does
but
that
that's what you become.
right? I think you think I'm cool, so I have to be that person.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable insight. Thank you so much. It's been great to learn about the hustle of the monk, the man, the myth, the legend. This has been another episode
Yeah,
of Keep Hustling. Remember, always do well by doing good. And of course, keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. If you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.